Welcome, everybody, to Samudra Shakti Online. I'm so glad you're joining us tonight. So, tonight we have Jessica Jennings with us. I would like to welcome Jessica to Samudra Shakti Online. She is an Anusara certified teacher and she has a master's of science. She's the founder of Ma Yoga for Pregnancy, Motherhood, and Beyond. And she's kind of old school Anusara. We were talking about that. She was certified in 2006 in LA. And over the years, with her teaching lots of pregnant women and moms, she just started evolving what she was experiencing and what she wanted to share with the world. And tonight, she's sharing with us Mayurveda, anchor practices for busy people. So I'm going to stop the screen share and hand this off to Jessica. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And that was a lovely introduction, but I'm going to start with just giving you a little background about who I am, and then talk about what Mayurveda is, where it comes from, and then give you some, I hope, really useful principles, and then end with the practices, what I consider to be the 9 most essential, what I call anchor practices derived from Dinacharya of Ayurveda. So I'm Jessica, and I was certified in 2006 as an Anusara instructor. And in 2009, I founded Ma Yoga for Pregnancy, Motherhood, and Beyond. This presentation is not about pregnancy or postpartum, but the Mayurveda training is part of my prenatal certification program, just because it is so useful for everyone, but especially for the mamas. So let's see. Okay, so little background. So yeah, so that was me just around getting certified in 2006. And then you see me with a pregnant mama. So after my first Anusara teacher training in 2001, I was asked to teach prenatal. I knew nothing about it. It was kind of terrifying, but it was a wonderful exploration of applying Anusara alignment principles for pregnancy. And I guess at first I just felt like it was a lot of do's and don'ts, right? And even especially at that time, prenatal yoga was very much about being gentle, gentle yoga. And I think eventually I realized there is an opportunity there that is what really caused me to fall in love with it and pretty much dedicate my life path to it. But more on that later. Then down below, you see a picture of me at Kaiser Permanente. So this was, I was finishing up my master's in kinesiology, and I created a group visit and prenatal yoga program. And that's me with my baby. I just had my baby. That was a really wonderful experience. And I really saw how what I had been doing kind of very much complemented Western, Western and Eastern. There weren't any issues. So, and I saw how transformative our practices were. So I left to start, actually, no, this actually was a little bit later. You can see me with my baby, and honestly, I look very happy, but the truth is that I am having a very hard time in that picture. I actually remember that moment really well. And you may notice my hair is straight, and I do not have straight hair. So I was very depleted, and I was very exhausted, and I was very isolated. And what I learned from this time is that I hadn't quite learned how to take care of myself. I knew how to go to an 1.5-hour yoga class and, sweat it out, but I didn't have a home practice to speak of that would actually take me out of my own patterns, right? My meditation, I had learned from someone in the Anusara community actually, who said, 20 minutes a day, twice a day, or don't bother. And so that went out the window. There was no way I could even have 20 minutes a day, right? Foods, I live in Los Angeles. I would stop at Whole Foods and have somebody make me food. So yeah, so it was a hard time, and I realized that I needed to get back to the kind of essence of it all, right? It occurred to me that all of these practices were generally, this is a generalization, created by men for people who were not, moms, right? So what would all of these things look like, right, if we kind of got back to the essence of it all, and maybe did something in the 1 minute where baby was distracted, right? So I actually took an Ayurveda course with Kate Stillman. I remember that year, it was my first online course. I was pushing my baby in the stroller, and my mouth was agape at just how amazing this Ayurveda was. I mean, I had obviously studied it a little bit, but it felt like a manual for me of how to take care of myself. And so what I was doing as I was listening was kind of paring it down, and kind of realizing that not everybody has a year, and then I repeated it again, 2 years to really get all this stuff down. So what do I feel is the most essential elements that I want to share, for in my teaching, and thus, my yoga kind of became sort of not just a prenatal yoga, but a school of yoga for people who really want to step into their highest, their highest self, right? And that's going to be on and off the mat. Around this time was, it was around 2009, when I decided to start my own thing. And part of that was, in fact, what was happening with Anusara, which was, it was changing form. And it was not an easy transition for any of us to go through. And, for me, I just realized I wanted to nurture a community really badly. So that's what I did. I started Ma yoga, the syllable Ma in every, almost every language, not every language. I had to take some out of this list, but most languages you can see it means mother, which is kind of amazing. And in Sanskrit, the language of yoga, it also means the highest, most powerful, nurturing, and wise, right, of any group. So we have Mahavahashrota, which is, the digestive tract, which we know from Ayurveda is the seat of all disease and health. We have Ma Kali, the mother of all goddesses. She's not pretty, but she's our mom. Everything she does comes from love. So thus Ma yoga. And for me, putting these two concepts together was really essential. Again, like, I like babies, like most people, I like that whole time of life. But for me, the draw to teach pregnant women is less about teaching people to become a mother to their baby and more about teaching people to become a mother to themselves. And for me, what I was seeing in my pregnant students was that there was this transition when people slowed down and kind of chose to take this time to take care of themselves, to learn, to make changes in their lives that they had been meaning to make. And for me, that was just a really wonderful kind of doorway that opened. And this is kind of rooted in yoga. So we have prana, right? If we talk about alignment-based yoga, right? Aligning on the mat. What are we aligning with? Well, we're aligning with prana, with the flow of prana to create an easeful flow of prana. And what are the three qualities of prana? Well, prana is nurturing, right? So prana, even if we're not conscious of our breath, every breath is nurturing every cell, right? And it is removing what is not us and bringing new life to what is us. So there's that nurturing energy. Prana is the most intelligent force that we know of. You know, we really can't duplicate it with any computer. The systems of the body are speaking to each other. And I have this acorn here to represent just like the way that our cells just have the knowledge already of what is possible for us, right? So how to get there. And so there's a sense of aligning with this intelligence where we can actually tap into what I call the inner GPS, and be guided by this wisdom within us, right? We get these clues, these senses from in these moments, especially on the mat or in meditation. And then, of course, prana is powerful. It is creating the beat that beats our heart. And so these three qualities are there within us all. They make up who we are. And yet I began to kind of consider this theory that one of them opens the door to the rest, right? So how was it that the women who were stopping to really experience pregnancy fully, and I'm not dissing people who don't or can't or continue just, you know, working throughout, but if people, you know, have that privilege, there is to like allow themselves to make changes during that time. There is something about turning nurturing energy inward that opens the door for us to step into our power and our wisdom, right? Our highest Ma self. And it is that nurturing energy. When I talk about nurturing energy, this is really, it's not just the context within which I want you guys to think about and maybe incorporate some of these anchor practices, right? It's not just, you know, the how. It cannot be separated from, right? It is the essence. It is, and most of us think, well, yeah, I mean, I nurture myself, right? I like hot baths and I like a good pedicure sometimes, but if you just take a moment and even close your eyes for a moment and just bring into your awareness a little child. Maybe you have a child in your life that you love, or just picture even yourself as a child, right? And it's a little toddler who is learning how to walk, right? And like holding onto a table and walking around that table and then falling over, right? And just think of what you would say to that toddler. It's okay. It's fine. It's all part of the process. Let's just get up and keep going. Look how far you've come. You took 3 whole steps. You are amazing. You're going to be doing this in no time, right? And now what I want you to do is just compare that to your self-talk and be really honest with yourself. How often do you say to yourself, it's okay, you're doing great. So that happened. It happens, right? You have everything that you need within you to do this. Just keep going, right? I think that this is something that can really get lost. It can get lost in our yoga. It can get lost in ourselves and the pressure we put on ourselves as teachers, as practitioners, to turn that nurturing energy inward toward ourselves. So that's really kind of the essence of where we're headed. And what this kind of calls up then is an awareness of the 2 different parts of ourselves, right? So we have Shiva Shakti, we have yin and yang. So we basically have different words for the 2 complementary sides of ourselves. And these, if we use the words feminine and masculine, we're not talking about gender, we're not talking about archetypes, we're not talking about sexuality in any way. It really just is simply a way to talk about these kind of opposing qualities, and yet qualities that can support each other, dance with each other, are inherent in each other, right? So if you think about a more masculine side of ourselves, again, this, everybody has both of these. There's an independent side of us, right? I got this, don't worry about it. It's a logical part that can go through checklists. You know, that's the part of us where even as busy moms, let's say, you got to get the right kid to the right after school activity, right? So we got to call up this part of ourselves. It's achievement oriented, right? It's about getting to this point and being successful at it. There's a certainty that we want to have, that we like to have when we're in our more masculine self, right? And sort of a steadiness and a consistency. And when we're like creating from this part of ourselves, we really move in, at least we try our best to move in a straight line. So let's say we're building a house. We're going to want that masculine side. We're going to want to have our drawings. We're not going to build the foundation and then say, you know what, I think maybe the first floor, I'm just getting this hit that it would be cool to have like a round floor. Like that's not the place for that kind of like creative, intuitive sensing, right? We want to have that linear side at in the driver's seat. Now, the feminine side, while masculine is independent, this is more relational. We got this. We need each other. We know we're better together. That's the side of us that is sort of feeling our way forward, right? Intuitive, looking for guidance from inside and out. It's more process oriented, right? So it's the part of us that we call up for yoga, right? Where we want to do a handstand in the middle of the room, right? And there's nothing wrong with having that goal, but we're reminded by our teachers, we remind ourselves it's really not about that. And it's about all the gifts that we get along the way. It's about staying open, and it's also the feminine is everything that flows and changes, right? So if you think of Shiva Shakti are the multitudinous forms of the essence of Shiva. And what I love is the feminine moves in a spiral. And I think of this as a rising spiral. A great example, I think, is when you're trying to create a good habit. And so let's say you're trying to start eating healthy, right? So you make yourself good salad and a green smoothie, and then the next day, there's a donut, right? And you just go for it. And then and then you keep going, and it's like, yeah, I'm gonna be good to myself, and I keep going, and this starts to rise, and eventually your low is higher than your old highs, right? Your low, you're still gonna have them, you're still gonna mess up. I have yet to meet anyone, and I'm 54, and I've been looking for a really long time for an enlightened being who is done and needs no more work. I haven't found them yet, but definitely put in the chat if that's you. But maybe your low is you had a whole half a watermelon, or whatever. So in this way, we move forward on this feminine path. And so what I'm inviting people into here is to kind of receive these anchor practices that we're going to talk about from this place of nurturing ourselves, and from this place of taking baby steps, from this place of recognizing, like, it's not about like, I am not doing that anymore, because where are we when we say that? When we draw a hard line and we say that I'm done with that, we're in our masculine side. And again, the masculine side is super good for a lot of things, but it's not good. It's not going to get us where we want to be if we want to develop ourselves or manifest an intention or write a poem or anything that requires sort of co-creating with bigger forces. Okay, so the anchor practices, they anchor us to that feminine wisdom and power, feminine because it's always flowing and changing. And we do it through connecting to nurturing energy. And that's really what the anchor practices are these little pockets of our day where we're going to choose to nurture ourselves, because that's where the rest of it flows from. Okay. So I'm going to open it up for questions on the chat. If anybody has any, I'm happy to take them. But if not, I'm just going to continue on here. So I have put these in order of what I consider to be the easiest to incorporate into your life, but also probably the most important to less important. And that's me, right? And so in the world of this more feminine side, there's nothing written in stone. And so you may hear this and go, I hear what she's saying, but for me, that's the one, right? And that's your inner wisdom talking. And that's really the whole point of all of this. So that means you're open and receptive. So thank you. So meditation, the reason I put it first is because if we don't have it, we're probably not going to be able to hear, sense, receive those little clues about what's next for us on our path. And it's also a chance to practice turning nurturing energy inward, right? So what are we doing first and foremost when we close our eyes? We're really loving ourselves. And we can even think of it as just creating a love bubble around ourselves. And from that place of love, we can start to get information. We can start to go, oh gosh, my thoughts are going there today. Interesting. We're not beating ourselves up. We're not trying to stop our thoughts. Again, those hard lines means we're more in the masculine self. That's fine. We're going to use that. We're even going to use it on the mat, right? It's really important to understand intellectually what we're doing and even go through our steps. So it's not that we don't, it's that we want to start from that feminine nurturing place. So pretty much all spiritual traditions have a practice of dawn meditation. Dr. Claudia Welsh, who she wrote Balance Your Hormones, Balance Your Life. She's a Chinese medical practitioner and an Ayurvedic practitioner, but she talks about placing the 24-hour day on the life cycle. And so the beginning of the day, you have this opportunity to go deep into patterns that were created early, even womb, even potentially before. In addition, if we have a loving relationship with ourselves in this time of meditation, then oxytocin begins to flow, oxytocin being the love hormone. And one of the wonderful effects of oxytocin is it literally softens this part of our brain that this, like the bacillus, has another word that I'm forgetting right now, but it's like the part that was soft as we were growing into adolescence and then hardened. It literally becomes soft again. You can think of like soft cement. So what we say to ourselves during that time, a mantra, an intention that we set, actually can have a very profound effect in our subconscious, almost like a new core memory that we're creating if we do that early. Okay. However, maybe we don't get there first thing in the morning. Maybe we don't have 10 full minutes to do it. And so if it gets to nighttime and you're about to go to sleep and you haven't meditated, 1 minute sitting in bed, and it will anchor you. It will keep you anchored. Okay. Next is early to bed. Now, it's a struggle for me. Should this be first? Because this allows you to meditate early. However, I think it's second. And the reason I think it's second is because you can meditate anytime. The meditation will tap you into your inner guide. You will start to maybe make better choices. And one of them is unplugging by 6 in what we call kapha time, right? This kind of chill earth time, and getting to bed by 10. So 10 becomes this magic number. If you study Ayurveda, it's kind of beyond the scope of this, but between 10 and 2 is pitta time. So pitta is that fire of transformation within us. It digests things. It takes things from one form, changes it into another. If we go to sleep by 10, right? It's like pitta can process our day. And that's what's supposed to be happening during that time. And then we can have a really deep and wonderful sleep and wake up early and refreshed. If we go to bed later, what happens is we just develop an appetite, right? Pitta is like, I want to digest something. What else is there to do but eat? And then the body has to be digesting when you go to sleep, and it's not quite as deep or as nourishing. So that would be the second one. Can't get to bed by 10. That's fine. Maybe lean into a little bit earlier, all of these things. I mean, imagine I'm teaching new moms about this. They're like, what are you talking about? I can't even get to sleep, no less by a certain time. It's really like about on those days when suddenly you find, oh my gosh, everything's quiet, you know what to go to, you know which anchor practices you love. Water, first thing. You can have all sorts of spices in it, depending what's happening, but water, obviously, deeply hydrating, obviously connecting you into that recognition that you are worth nurturing, but also it gets elimination going. So according to Ayurveda, if we don't poop within actually 10 minutes, some hardcore people say an hour, others say, but if it doesn't happen first thing, then things are not optimal. You want to look at what happened the day before, but the water can really help get things going. Big glass of water or two to start the day. Alignment practice. I separate this out from yoga. I struggled with this for a long time, but I can't do a whole 45 minutes. I got to get my daughter to school. So it doesn't matter. You do 5 minutes of a pose where you talk yourself through the elements, right? The alignment principles. And you just connect to the different parts of yourself, create that space and the strong container for prana to flow. And you can start to tap in more and more to that inner GPS and to your own power to fulfill your desires. Now, this is my personal fave, one of them. I love them all, but this one's great. Coconut oil massage. So this happens before the shower. When you shower, your pores open up, and I got a good question on the chat. I will address that. And your body literally drinks this. So what you want is definitely food grade, organic, extra virgin coconut oil. But this is a fairly rigorous massage where you're rubbing, trying to get the circulation going in your muscles. And there's also an awareness aspect of it where you're kind of checking out your bod and going, I never noticed that freckle, or there's a little bump there, right? So this is important to be sort of aware of the changes in our physical body. And then obviously it is very nurturing and you just feel so soft after. And if you don't have time to do it before the shower, step out of the water or rub it around. It's still good. It still does something. I'm going to pause and just address this very interesting question, which was explain the difference between nurturing and enabling. And we are just talking about nurturing ourselves. And so I'm going to just keep it in that realm. But I think that when we think of ourselves as sort of, kind of doing some bad things, and we really can't support that. I think we are not in that feminine part of ourselves, which is the part that we need to creatively develop into that highest Ma self. So there's no question that we have sort of a more mature part of us, right? That knows more. And for instance, that ice cream, it's really going to make you feel bad, right? And you're lactose intolerant, and it's not going to be good. If we have it anyway, I'm not saying that's great, go for it, good. I'm saying love yourself anyway. I'm saying it's okay. It's okay to do that every once in a while. It's okay to mess up, and we really need treats. And I don't know any human who doesn't. So let's look at this like we needed something. And now we realize, yeah, it did make me feel sick. And let's just have a really healthy day tomorrow, right? So I hope that makes sense, that we're not like saying, yes, do that bad behavior because I love you. And we're really kind of guiding ourselves the same way we would guide a little child that we love. Neti Pot saved me from a life full of colds. Every winter, one cold after another. And I went to my Ayurvedic practitioner, and he gave me some spicy herbs, which help also. But the body, the way that it fights colds and germs is that it surrounds the germs with mucus. And then it expects you to get that mucus out, right? So it can cough if it's down here, it can sneeze if it's up here, but it's not quite as good at getting it out as it is with creating it sometimes, especially for people like me who I have asthma and I just tend to create a lot. Having a gluten-free and dairy-free diet definitely helped because the body uses those things to create the mucus, but also a daily neti pot I find is amazing. I don't wake up feeling like, oh, my nose is kind of clogged, but it's just amazing what actually comes out. So I have a blog. If you haven't done it in a long time or you've never done it, myyoga.com, and go to the blog and just put in neti pot, and there's a whole thing about how to do it. And we're almost at the end here. So biggest meal in the middle of the day. And this aligns with Ayurveda for sure. This aligns with even Western medicine, where we have more digestive enzymes in the middle of the day. If you think about our physiology, right, the past 100,000 years or so, there would be a big meal, right, in the early afternoon or whatever. And then supper, the word supper was supplement. It was only in the past couple hundred years that we had this big event at dinner time in the evening, and that was because of industrialization. So maybe our bodies will shift and change, but for now, it is recommended that if we're going to have that treat, we have it in the middle of the day. Our body definitely has more of that pitta, digestive fire, and we need the energy. We use the energy more. Then there's a light early dinner, soup, salad, whatever veggies you had. And that way your body can be done digesting food by the time we sleep. These are the last two. I don't mean to shirk them. I do like them, but honestly, I'll be honest. I don't do a lot of oil pulling. It comes and goes. When I'm teaching my Mayurveda training, I get back into it again. I love it. I love how it makes my mouth feel. So you swish around coconut oil, and it has these properties of being antiviral, anti-inflammatory. And the idea is that, obviously your teeth are connected to the rest of your body, and you're pulling toxins out through your mouth, and when you spit out that coconut oil, and make sure to spit it out in a garbage can and not a drain, because it will get hard, it will be a different color. So definitely something happens, but I love it. It makes my teeth feel very clean and also protected if you have sensitive teeth. And I love the dry brushing also. So that is something that just gets rid of the dead cells, and just a little bit either or with the oil massage. And these are my trainings that I offer. So Mayurveda is actually part of the prenatal certification program that I do online. And so each of these trainings you can do live with us. It's 3 weeks, twice a week. If you're interested in getting certified, your RPYT, or you can do any of them for continuing education. So just real quick, you get the feel for what Mayurveda is. We spend a lot more time on the deep principles of Ayurveda. 3 of the sessions are, and then we have time to really explore these anchor practices, and we apply them to pregnancy, postpartum, kids, and colds. The yoga of healing is a therapeutics workshop, but it's using a woman's body as the model. And we're also going to is a slight different take on the principles because we're simplifying them using the elements, and we're also kind of applying them more to the childbearing years. The yoga of pregnancy is your prenatal teacher training. So if you just don't want to be nervous with pregnant women coming into your class, that's the one to take. And then the yoga of birth is a childbirth education course taught by 2 doulas, and using yoga as our guide. And that is all I got. So I would love any questions anyone has or comments. And if anybody wants to write in the chat any of the anchor practices that you already do, your faves, I would love to hear.
I actually, go ahead and stop the screen share, Jessica, if you don't mind. I
Sure.
think you've got that document up. I love dry brushing. It's funny, like the ones you're like, nah, I'm like, oh no, that dry brushing helps. It's helped me with pain of all things. Yeah, like significant pain. Um, so
That's very interesting. I mean, I do love it. I just have to pick one or the other with the oil because you can't really with the oil. But that's very interesting. It helps you with pain. And I actually remember Kate Stillman saying, if you have a pain, just try rubbing it. It's just bringing that prana circulation to that area. So that's wonderful.
yeah, I've
You
used
know,
it at night.
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying I've used it like at night if I've woken up with pain in my leg over the years. I don't have to do it anymore, but I did it regularly. Yeah, so it's
Interesting.
yeah, and the oil, I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll do it, but I will not stop the dry brushing.
So Lisa and I have worked together for a really long time. I happen to be very Vata, and you can probably comment on this, Jessica. But for me, the dry brushing is not as big a deal, but oiling. If I can't oil and just and oiling for pain too, it takes away inflammation, any joint pain that I might be having. If I could just like warm oil it on a day, it disappears. It's amazing. And I have gotten huge results from internal and external oiling. So maybe you want to talk a little bit about the doshas and how different doshas may benefit from the different practices.
Absolutely. Yeah. And how wonderful that you found that practice and it's given you so many gifts. So for those of you who have not studied Iyengar, Ayurveda that much, all these A words, I have a little Reader's Digest version. So to figure out what is your dosha, right? So imagine that you are driving in traffic. Of course, I use that because I'm in Los Angeles. You're driving in traffic. You're supposed to meet someone. You are late, right? And we would all do all of these things, but just see which is the one that is a little bit more your tendency. Would you get really pissed off and flip off the car that is going so slow as you pass them? Would you start to tap on your leg and get very nervous and anxious thinking about that person waiting for you and really start to panic a little bit? Or would you just sit there thinking, I just want to go home and lie on the couch with a bag of potato chips? So those are the extremes, right? And we all have all of those, right? So the first one, the one that gets really annoyed is pitta, fire, right? So when you're out of balance, if you tend to get frustrated, if there's an intense focus to it, if you think of flames, right? They're always reaching for something. So pitta people are the doers. When they are in balance, they can get a lot done. When they are out of balance, they can get very competitive and angry and judgmental. So if you tend to get nervous, right? Anxious, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. You're tapping your leg, you're going toward a little bit of anxiety when you're out of balance. This is Vata, wind, right? And if you think about wind, it can get very scattered. So think about air. It's just going to move into whatever space it has. So Vata people really need to create these boundaries. If you think of Vata, it's almost another word for prana, right? And so prana, you can think of as electricity. So we want to have this insulation around where our prana is flowing. And Vata people tend to have a little less insulation, right? So when they are in balance, Vata people can have the most subtle awareness of any of the doshas. And they can really sense what's going on under the surface. But they can get out of balance where they get scattered. So if you've ever talked to someone who you feel like if you ask them a question, they may never stop talking, that's Vata happening. And we can have a little bit more of these, a little bit less of these, depending on the day, depending what is happening in our life. So in the West, we tend to think of doshas as I was born this way, and so I eat this and I don't eat this. But in Mayurveda, because it's so much about feeling our way forward, there's even more of an emphasis, honestly, than our dosha on looking around at what's happening and saying, oh, I'm moving. My boyfriend just broke up with me and it's cold out. I probably have a Vata imbalance right now. So I'm going to do the things that balance Vata. And I'll talk about that in a second. The last one is Kapha, earth. And so Kapha people are just really chill, right? If you think of putting your finger into dirt, it's cool. So there's a chill, there's a groundedness. Kapha people tend to be the best huggers. But Kapha people can also really store energy. So earth, think of it, that has anything that, has substance. So Kapha people, John Friend, had a lot of Kapha, right? What does that mean? It means he's like the ever ready bunny or whatever it is, where he can do 2 weeks of trainings and not be depleted, right? So that's Kapha. And, out of balance, Kapha can be kind of get stagnant. So Kapha is water and earth, so it can actually get muddy. So we all have all of them. We're like a mobile, right? We have some unique combination of all of them. And so for Pitta, coconut oil is incredibly good because it's cooling. If you have a lot of Vata, you may and it's cold out, right? And you feel like you have a lot of anxiety, you may go toward a heavier oil like sesame oil. That would be way too heavy for me as more of a Pitta tendency person. Honestly, the first thing we're going to do for any imbalance is balance our Vata, because, that's really, first of all, the lifestyle stuff, right? If you have a rash, you can learn, like we in Mayurveda, and I am not an Ayurvedic practitioner. I don't claim to have the answers, but I do teach people the questions to ask and explore. You might say, is this a dry rash? Does it itch? Is it red or is it yellow, right? So there are these questions that can kind of lead us to understand which dosha is present. But overall, if we're having an imbalance, we want to meditate, go to sleep before 10, right? Start looking at our morning, make sure that we're having a really healthy, nourishing, full meal in the middle of the day. It's useful to learn the times of day and which dosha is predominant, because then you can start to align with that predominant energy. For instance, the middle of the day, right? We talked about 10 to 2 at night is that fire Pitta time. 10 to 2 in the middle of the day is also Pitta time. So this wouldn't be the best time to go for a run in the heat, right? That's like too much Pitta. We want to align with what's happening at the time, and but not overdo it. So yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. I just love the topic, and I would love to share more with you and have more conversations. So yeah, I think if there's one thing I hope you are walking away with, it's a sense that taking some time to turn that nurturing energy inward will open you up to the intelligence that is bigger than us, that is like that seed, that bija, within us that is the acorn, knowing how to grow into that oak tree. And that's going to lead you down a path that is going to be unique. It's probably not going to look anything like what your brain came up with. And I had a body worker once who said, if it feels like someone's turned out the lights and you're just feeling your way forward, then you're on your path. So I hope to get to see you all in my trainings, in these beautiful trainings. And thank you for listening.